Okay, we'll start with this. The rumors checked out. Jamie Mitchell is, in fact, going to be fighting someone else. She's not going to be fighting Shannon Courtenay in her very next fight. She's going to be fighting the UK's own Carly Thumper Skelly early next month on the 5th. On the undercard of the WBC Super Flyweight title fight between Sor Rungvisai and Carlos Cuadras. This is a good fight. Set to go down in Arizona. You have to wonder if former champion Shani is off somewhere tanning her fanny. The fuck's she doing? It's strange that Carly Thumper Skelly should be afforded this world title shot, this world title opportunity ahead of Australia's own Shotgun Shannon O'Connell, who is in a pole position via their ranked standings to get a title shot. I was talking about this in a previous video. Last year, Shotgun Shannon O'Connell beat Shernika Johnson, unbeaten Shernika Johnson, yet we've heard news that Shanika's going to be boxing for a world title this year. Ain't heard that kind of news for Shannon. And here we see that in spite of Shannon being ranked as the WBA's #1 contender, it's Carly Thumper Skelly that's going to be boxing for the WBA bantamweight title. Ain't heard that kind of news for Shannon. It's a strange turn of events, it is. I half expected Shannon O'Connell to be who Jamie Mitchell ended up boxing when rumors spread that the Courtenay rematch would not be Jamie's next fight. I expected Shannon O'Connell to be who Jamie boxes. As it turns out, Carly Thumper Skelly has gotten that opportunity. Not a bad fight at all. Promises to have a good aesthetic. Carly Thumper Skelly, she's at or around the same experience level as Shannon Courtenay, as Jamie Mitchell. 4 wins, no losses, 1 draw. To Jamie Mitchell's 7 wins and no losses, 2 draws. 4 knockouts. The edge and power has to go to the reigning champion. The edge and power has to go to Jamie Mitchell, who has 4 recorded knockouts, to Carly Thumper Skelly's none. Carly's a mid-range to inside pressure fighter. And a messy one. The kind of fighter that can cause a finesse fight kind of fighter, a pure boxer, like an Amy Timlin, to lose their form under that pressure. Whereas Jamie Mitchell, she's more of a boxer puncher. My honest opinion is Jamie Mitchell can win this fight, and there's a chance that she really hurts Carly Thumper Skelly. There is, because I reiterate, the edge and power, it does go to the reigning champion. It does go to Jamie Mitchell. It's not because Carly's a bad fighter. From where I'm sitting, this is a bad style matchup for Carly Thumper Skelly. It is. Carly being that mid-range to inside pressure fighter that's attempting to crowd their opponent and stand in front of them, let the fists fly. She's going to afford Jamie Mitchell that many more opportunities to use that power of hers. Because of how aggressive Carly Thumper Skelly is, how come forward she is, Jamie Mitchell, for Jamie Mitchell, Carly won't be hard to find. She'll be there for the shots, there for the power. Jamie Mitchell has athleticism, enough, I think, to where she can create space as Carly Thumper Skelly's coming forward to get off hard shots. And not get flustered like Amy Timlin did when she fought Carly. Amy Timlin, the then unbeaten Amy Timlin, that fight between her and Carly, it ended in a draw, but I remember a lot of people saying they felt Carly had done enough to win the fight, that she should have got the decision because she was the busier fighter, the busier puncher, backing Amy Timlin off. Amy Timlin, who's more akin to a pure boxer, a finesse fighting, fleet of foot, sharpshooting kind of fighter, she found that very difficult to do against the very aggressive Carly Thumper Skelly. Different kettle of fish with Jamie Mitchell, who's a boxer puncher. If you want to stand in front of her, she's going to make you pay for it. She won't backpedal. Yeah, I like Jamie to win the fight. It might be by way of knockout. I know Carly Skelly's an unbeaten fighter. She's never been stopped, but there's a first time for everything. And if she stands in front of Jamie Mitchell too long, that might happen. This ain't the news that I expected, but I'm okay with it. I expected Shannon O'Connell to get the shot more than I expected Carly Skelly to get it. Better still, it's a good fight. It's a decent fight. Decent, keep busy fight for Jamie Mitchell. The chance to face an unbeaten fighter like herself and give them their first professional loss en route to what could be the Shannon Courtenay rematch. And what Shannon is doing at this time, your guess is as good as mine. I reiterate, is Shanny off somewhere tanning her fanny? I mean, the rematch ain't next, so there's got to be a reason for it. Not next for the reigning champion, not next for Jamie Mitchell anyways. Maybe that will be Shannon Courtenay's next fight. We'll just have to wait and see.
Monday purse bids are due for White and Fury. Presumably that just goes ahead on Monday in spite of all this arbitration that's going on in the background.
Well, I think, that's one for the WBC that I'm not sure whether that purse bid goes ahead on Monday, because there will be a procedure where Dillian Whyte will appeal, either via the WBC or via the arbitration or via the courts regarding that split. So do you wait until that appeal takes place before the purse bid go ahead? Because it all becomes very messy at that point. Whenever the purse bid goes ahead, we will be bidding, and we will be bidding very aggressively. for that fight. But you know, I don't think you're going to see Dillian Whyte pulling out of a fight because he's not happy with a split. He just wants to make sure that his case is heard with regards to that, and that a decision is made fairly regarding that process before it's finalised. And ultimately, it was a decision made by the WBC. But there's a lot going on in terms of the arbitration and in the courts regarding Dillian Whyte's situation with the WBC.
That audio is from approximately 4 days ago when Eddie Hearn warned that the purse bid might not go down this Monday being today. And since then, news has broken that the purse bid has once again been postponed. That would be the second time the purse bid has been postponed till later on this month on the 21st, which is just 1 or 2 days.
Dillian Whyte is hoping to appeal the split.
Appeal the assigned 80-20 split by way of the WBC. He's hoping through the appeal process he can receive a more improved split. Meanwhile, per tweet from Michael Benson, Tyson Fury versus Dillian Whyte talks remain ongoing to try and reach a deal before purse bids, Bob Arum has revealed. However, he also named Robert Helenius and Manuel Charr as potential opponents for Fury if the Whyte fight doesn't happen next.
Oh, so no Andy Ruiz?
I'm not telling you Fury versus Ruiz in America does astronomical numbers. I don't think it does, but I think it does better numbers than Fury versus Helenius or Fury versus Manuel Charr.
What are we gonna do now? Pretend Fury versus Charr is a hot ticket in America?
It's a hot ticket in the United Kingdom. Fury versus Helenius. You think people are clawing at their faces to see that fucking fight in either the United Kingdom or the United States?
I am just so fucking sick of this story.
So sick of these updates that seem to indicate what I already thought. Getting Tyson Fury, Dillian Whyte in the same ring is going to prove difficult. Very difficult. And that's what we're seeing. And if you want my opinion, and you're here, so I'll assume that you do, you can do the fight at $7 million up front at 35% of the split. I think that's a reasonable offer, given the size and scale of the fight. The fact that Dillian Whyte is not just some challenger, he's not just some voluntary, he's the WBC's interim champion, and he has his own marquee value in the United Kingdom. That's
worth considering.
$5 million up front at 25% of the split is not a good faith offer. This fight is a lot bigger than that, and the powers that be are fully aware. So if you make that kind of offer, it can't be with the intention of actually doing the fight and getting it over the line. A lot of people want to exaggerate Tyson Fury's marquee value at this time based on the Wilder fights in America. But in America, he won't do what he did with Wilder on his own. He won't do what he did with Wilder with a guy like Manuel Charr or Robert Helenius. So let's not kid ourselves here.
Listen, that's not a hot ticket anywhere on the planet.
And if you're telling yourself it is because Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder did $19 million at the gate with the second fight, and $17 million at the gate with the third fight, if that's what you're telling yourself, you're wasting your own time, because Tyson Fury, off his own name value, won't do that with Robert Helenius, and he won't do anything near that with Manuel Charr. Tyson Fury needs a high-profile dance partner.
I don't see them throwing around Andy Ruiz's name anymore.
Not that I was expecting that fight to get made. I wasn't. I was expecting the opposite, and it seems that time has proven me right. They might have mentioned him a week or 2 weeks ago, but Ruiz isn't actually in the running for that fight. He was never a realistic option.
You know, I don't really even get the sense that the WBC would actually strip Tyson Fury.
I don't. I get the sense that the WBC is in cahoots with Bob Arum, in cahoots with Tyson Fury, and that's why they offered up Dillian Whyte, a split that is even lower than what Bob Arum and Top Rank, the Tyson Fury people, offered up. Bob offered up $5 million up front at 25%, and comes the WBC with an assigned split of 80-20.
You could have at least matched Bob's offer.
Those scumbags at the WBC didn't even do that. I'm sick of this situation, sick of hearing about it, and I'm just waiting for it all to come to a head. For some...
What's the grand finale gonna be for this thing?
Eddie Hearn plans on bidding aggressively for this fight if and when it does go to a purse bid. And I don't think for a second that Bob Arum and Frank Warren want to see Tyson Fury boxing under the Matchroom banner for even one fight. Just one fight, a one-off situation with Eddie Hearn's boy, Dillian Whyte. I don't think they want that to happen at all.
But the purse bid ain't till the 21st.
Dillian Whyte is still aspiring to get an improved split by way of the appeal process. The purse bid itself isn't for another 3 to 4 days.
I don't know that he'll get an improved split. I mean, when has the WBC ever done him any favors?
So even if they don't do him any favors and the split remains an 80-20 split of the pot, it seems that Eddie Hearn has every intention of landing that fight, regardless of what happens, while Dillian Whyte explores all his avenues of opportunity. It seems that Eddie Hearn is focused on landing that fight, and I'm sure
Bob and Frank don't want that to happen.
It's supposed to be this Friday, and it'd be quite optimistic to assume that that's going to lead to a fight. I just don't know. And finally, Eddie Hearn shakes head at Breidis chasing Jake Paul. Get real. Go fight Okolie.
About time somebody said it.
Hearn thinks Breidis should forget about Paul and come together with Okolie for a high-stakes unification. Breidis is walking around like an... I don't know what Breidis is doing. Breidis is embarrassing. He's getting tattoos of Jake Paul on his leg and calling him out to fight. What is he doing? He's got a unification there against Lawrence Okolie. I know he's got a mandatory, Hearn said, according to The Sun. The guy is embarrassing. Great fighter, by the way. Brilliant fighter. But a world champion cruiserweight calling out Jake Paul and getting a tattoo saying something like Karma Jake? Whether the tattoo is real or not, what? And I like Breidis. He's a brilliant fighter. But mate, come on. Get real. Go fight Lawrence Okolie.
I've been saying it for weeks now.
Breidis does not keep the energy for Lawrence Okolie that he keeps for Jake Paul, a pseudo-boxer, a novice boxer that has not actually boxed a boxer. And to that, Lawrence Okolie himself reacts to Breidis targeting Jake Paul. It's sad, doing whatever for likes on social media. He being Lawrence Okolie, felt it was sad to see a fighter like Breidis targeting Jake Paul, who has yet to face an actual boxer in the ring. I personally believe the tattoo is fake. He's just attention-seeking. Okolie told Give Me Sport. It's sad because he's a great fighter that has now resorted to doing whatever it takes for likes on social media. But I guess at the end of the day, it all comes down to pound notes being dollars, dollars being cents, and making sense. Before Breidis can think about Jake Paul or Lawrence Okolie or anyone else, he has a mandatory challenger in J.O. Pataya. He's had trouble locking down the other world champions at the weight. I understand why. It's a hard fight for good money, but there's still easier fights out there for people to take. And when you're a champion, your overall price goes up. So you want to maintain that for as long as possible without risking it, Okolie said. When I first turned professional, I saw the division and I saw there was a lot of good fighters, but there was no draw to it outside of Tony Bellew. I thought to myself, I'm going to try and push the division up. Obviously, I've played my part, but what I don't want is people hanging around just waiting for the Okolie fight. I feel like I'm a trailblazer in terms of the risks that I take, and I hate the idea of other people just hanging around at an easy level and getting a world title shot because I took the risks at the time. Now, we haven't seen Breidis in action since the Artur Man fight last year.
Breidis has averaged one fight a year for the last 3 years.
The Glovatsky fight in 2019, the Uniel Dorticos fight in 2020, and the Artur Man fight last year in 2021. He's been fighting once a year for the last 3 years. And I've been telling you guys for weeks and months, because that's how long this has been going on. I don't get the sense that Breidis fancies that Lawrence Okolie fight. I don't know why, but he's dedicating far more of his own time to calling out Jake Paul for a fight that is not likely to happen at all. And I don't see him keep that energy for Lawrence Okolie.
He's making a fool out of himself.
That's what he's doing. As we speak, Jake Paul is rumored to be in negotiations for a potential Mike Tyson fight.
I don't know if that's going to happen.
But I know that I've never seen Jake Paul even acknowledge that Breidis exists, in spite of how much time Breidis has spent calling him out. Jake Paul, in all likelihood, will not box this man, and you don't need me to tell you that. Neither should Breidis. He shouldn't need me or Eddie Hearn or Lawrence Okolie to make light of how cringeworthy and ridiculous it is that he's calling out Jake Paul. How much time he's spending on that. Now, Lawrence Okolie himself,
he might become this division's next unified champion.
He's working more towards that goal a lot more than Breidis is at this time. And I don't want to slight Breidis because he did participate in 2 separate seasons of the World Boxing Super Series, though I get the sense that here today he's in a different headspace than he was before. Late next month, Lawrence Okolie is supposed to be defending his WBO title against McCall Cieslak, a solid opponent choice, if I do say so myself. And on the undercard of that fight, the reigning WBA cruiserweight champion, Arsen Goulamarian, he's supposed to be taking care of his mandatory challenger, Igorov.
So you can more or less see what Matchroom is doing here.
Lawrence Okolie may end up fighting the winner of that fight and unifying with them, as opposed to Breidis. They're not waiting on Breidis. to make a unification match happen. And I just get the sense that unifying titles doesn't mean all that much to Maris Breidis because he still is promoted by Sarlin Promotions. Sarlin, that goes by the name Wasserman these days. And Wasserman is supposed to be in bed with Sky, aren't they? And Sky, they've got a couple of cruiserweights coming up, don't they?
I feel like if Maris Breidis wanted to box more than once last year, he could have.
I feel like if Maris Breidis wanted to, he could have applied more pressure on Wasserman to get him another fight before the year is out on Sky. Not necessarily against one of the fighters that they're developing there, but on one of those cards to showcase him as a champion that those fighters may be building towards. I mean, I don't think that's a far-fetched proposition. I don't think I'm going out on a limb. I think that makes a lot of sense if Maris Breidis wanted to fight more often, but the schedule he's been on communicates the opposite to me. That coupled with the amount of energy and time...
The amount of time he's wasting calling out Jake Paul, who probably doesn't even know he exists.
And if by some chance he does know he exists, and he knows anything about Maris Breidis, that he's a cruiserweight champion, how likely is Jake Paul, a pseudo-boxer, a novice boxer, who's never boxed an actual boxer, how likely is he to climb into the squared circle with a championship-level boxer, the likes of Maris Breidis? The whole thing is farce.
I don't see Maris Breidis pushing for no Okolie fight.
I don't. Nowhere near as much as he seems to be pushing for a Jake Paul fight, and I don't see him being very active either, in spite of having access to Sarlin Promotions / Wasserman, who I think if they wanted to...
If they wanted to, they could get him a fight on Sky on one of Chris Eubank Jr.'s undercards.
Maybe allow him to headline his own with a couple of those cruiserweights they're developing on the undercard.
I mean, I don't think that's far-fetched at all.